What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PNN podcast, episode 3. We're here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I mean, beautiful as it can get, right, Edward? I mean,
Yeah,
you can't beat this weather right now. Peak spring training weather, as the Arizonans like to say.
yeah.
Um, we're just living our best life right now. Hopefully, you guys are too back at home. Um, Edward, what's new with you? Anything new going on?
Same old, a different day, same thing. But you mentioned it, Joey spring training in action. I can't speak on the Grapefruit League's behalf, which we'll talk about today, but I like to think that Arizona might have them beat at least with the weather early in February. Florida, they had some rain there the other day, a couple of games postponed. So, living my best life here out in the valley.
Yeah, we I just caught my first spring training game of the year yesterday. Got to see the outstanding Chicago White Sox take on the Texas Rangers. And when I say outstanding, I mean they're like a team to be afraid of. Okay. If you're fighting for the least amount of ticket sales, you might have to watch out for the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're definitely in the running for that title. And honestly, I don't know. Anyone who shows up to a White Sox game this year, I really am questioning just, what else you have planned because honestly, I think I would rather do anything than go to a White Sox game at this point.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So yeah, well, Edward, why don't you take us through what we got going on this episode? We said last week we were gonna do Cactus League teams. This week we're gonna go through the grapefruit off-season moves. We'll get into some predictions, I believe. Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Predictions already?
Yeah. Got to set the stage, right? Like we said, like you said last week, we went through the Cactus League. We'll kind of, recap the offseason for the Grapefruit League teams, some predictions like you mentioned, and then talk about, potentially some players out for that. Talk heavy MLB, but we're also slide in some of the hoops bus and TGL before we get out of here. So, but Joey, off-season moves in the Grapefruit League. We'll start off with the Blue Jays. Blue Jays have been a competitive team, at least I would say by league standards. Last year, coming off a little bit of a disappointing year, 74 and 88. Not a horrible record, but fourth place, or excuse me, fifth place in that division, which is last place for the Blue Jays. What was up with them this offseason?
Well, I think they addressed the needs. They needed some pitching, some bullpen relief in general. The big headliner was Max Scherzer, right? I think the guy's almost 40. He might even be 40. And they signed him to a 1 year deal, which sets the standard. I believe they have a lot of veteran presence in that rotation. You got the looks of Chris Bassett with Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, and then you add now Max Scherzer, and then if you can get Alek Manoah back on the train, I mean that's a deep 5 run man right there. If you look at it, um, then they signed Anthony Santander, a little in division, kind of stirring up the pot, outfielder for the Orioles. Good switch hitting bat, plays right field, definitely solid on all ends. Then they signed right-handed reliever Jeff Hoffman for a 3 year deal, and Yimi Garcia for a 2 year deal. So honestly, I'd give it a solid B for the offseason. It just depends on Max Scherzer, realistically. I think Santander is a great acquisition. But if Scherzer pans out, if Scherzer does what he does, this team sneaky in that AL East division.
Yeah, like we said,
So
loaded division. I think, as far as Blue Jays fans go, they've been in the running for some of these top players. Going back to really the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes was, heavy rumored to be one of the favorites or at least one of the front runners among a group of like five or so to land him. Couldn't get Juan Soto this offseason, but I do think they had a pretty solid offseason bolstering that team. And you have to be aggressive given that division they played. So I wouldn't be surprised that the Blue Jays definitely improve upon last year, and maybe their record last year wasn't quite indicative of how good they were, just given the teams that they have to play on a daily basis. Moving out down to Florida, the Tampa Bay Rays, playing spring training as always in their home state. Give us a little insight on them.
yeah, well, here's the real thing I'm interested in is will they have a home field to play in this year? We saw the things with the hurricane, took off the whole roof of the trop is what they call it down there in St. Petersburg. So I feel like that's kind of the most interesting story about the Rays. Not really too worried about them if you're in that AL East division. But they're always a sneaky team somehow. Um, they did sign infielder Ha-Seong Kim on a 2-year deal, and catcher Danny Jansen on a 1-year deal. And then this surprised me, a Chicago White Sox legend, as we were just talking about how competitive they are,
Yeah.
Eloy Jimenez to a minor league deal. So, I mean, we'll see what it pans out. Not really scared of the Rays, not really going to go too in depth on them. I mean, we know the Rays are the Rays, and I feel like that whole division's boostering up for like, what's about to come, and the Rays are kind of
Yeah.
sticking with their guys. So we'll see
Yeah.
if it pans out.
Maybe one of the more less aggressive teams, at least in the offseason, in that division. Um, but the Red Sox, another team, I know, Joey, you're pretty high on them. A couple moves
Yeah.
they made in this offseason. I think one for me just to kind of spoil a little bit. Rollers Chapman on a deal, bolstering that bullpen out there.
Yeah. Not going to go too in depth on that roster, just going to save that for later. But we did get some great acquisitions in the offseason. Probably one of the highest grades, I would assume, for the offseason. They did sign left-hand pitcher Garrett Crochet, or they did a trade with him to the White Sox. They just like recently signed Alex Bregman on a 3-year deal. They signed Walker Buehler on a 1-year deal, and then obviously you said Aroldis Chapman. So, I mean, these are good pieces. I like Crochet. I like Buehler. Crochet kind of towards the end of the season was only pitching like a maximum of 3 innings per game, which I don't know if it was due to injury or just him being a trade asset. But if you could get him going, that's gonna be nice with the likes of Brian Bello. Obviously, you got Walker Buehler. If he could throw like how he does in the postseason, this team is gonna be up there for sneaky team. So
Yeah, you talk about the other side of that rivalry too, the Yankees. Yankees looking to get back to the World Series. Yankees, I thought had a real shot this year. Obviously, you can't really fault them too much just running into the Dodgers, who happen to have, every top player in this league. But I think the Yankees, once again, going to be a player, and they made a lot of moves early in this offseason. That kind of had to jog my memory about because it's the Yankees. They went out and got it quickly, and I think they're in a good position.
yeah, like you said, they went out and got their guys quick, and I feel like that shows that the Yankees know like they're just right there. Like you said, they just ran into a wall with the Dodgers. But if Judge makes that catch in center field, we may be looking at a different story, a different timeline. But the big signings were Max Fried on an 8-year deal. I feel like that's a great sign. Kind of surprised that the Braves would not try a little bit harder for him. I don't know if they did. They did all they can do. But I feel like that's a guy that was kind of a staple in that rotation with Spencer Strider coming up, and then they just signed Chris Sale a couple years ago, maybe. So that was just surprising. Another great signing was Devin Williams, the Airbender. They traded with the Brewers for him. That's a great bullpen asset. Gonna shut some games down for them. Then they got Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt. Your guy Bellinger with
Yeah,
that short porch in right field.
yeah.
Probably gonna be very dangerous, I would say. Not too worried about Goldschmidt, but Bellinger, watch out. What are your thoughts on that, huh?
Yeah, a player that I hated to lose. I especially kind of what happened with the Cubs. What was that now? Two off seasons ago with the negotiations with him and how long and drawn out that was. Hated to lose him, especially to a team like the Yankees. I think Cody Bellinger is going to seamlessly fit in there, and like you said, the short porch. I think makes the Yankees probably one of the best landing spots that he could have went to in this off season. Um, Moving on to another team that we're going to talk about also later in the pod, the Orioles, coming off a season where they were 91 and 71, 3 games back of that first spot in the AL East, made it to the playoffs, didn't go all that far, but one of the younger teams, at least I would say in the American League, still with a lot of potential and a very high ceiling.
Yeah. You see their offseason acquisitions. They signed outfielder Tyler O'Neill to a 3-year deal. Not really sure why. I feel like their outfield is pretty set in stone, especially last year they did draft the next Mike Trout from North Carolina, Vance Honeycutt. So their outfield is like this whole team is young.
Yeah.
So really what I was looking forward to them doing is signing some pitching, but we'll get into that later. And then more signings. They did sign Gary Sanchez, probably just going to help Rutschman behind the plate a little bit. And then Charlie Bourne on a 1-year deal. So like I said, I feel like they needed to address pitching. Um, Not really what they did, but it's the Orioles. They're gonna find a way. They're young enough, I feel like.
Yeah, and Orioles, really turning things around in the last couple of years, as are the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers, for my money, one of the better stories in baseball last year. Obviously, Detroit hasn't had a whole lot of success in the last decade or so. Last year, finished 10 games over, 86 and 76. Pretty, I would say, competitive division the AL Central was, at least last year, amongst themselves. The Guardians were the ones that took the division, but the Royals and Tigers also made a wild card spot, and the Twins also finished over 500, but perhaps the Tigers once again in the running for a playoff spot, and maybe that division's still up for grabs.
Yeah, definitely gonna be a competitive one. Um, their big offseason signs were Jack Flaherty, a 2-year deal. I believe he was with them in the beginning of the season. Then didn't go over to the Dodgers, cut a ring with them, and then now he's back. So that's gonna be interesting. Gonna add a lot for Skubal. I mean, Cy Young right there. And then you add Jack Flaherty with that. That's gonna be dangerous. And then Gleyber Torres, another signing, second baseman. Um, I mean, you just look at this lineup. I'm kind of liking it with, if they could get our boy Torque back on the wagon. I mean, they're gonna be nice. Shout out Spencer Torkelson, ASU alumni. The only real problem I see with this roster is your boy Javi Baez. Like, when is he gonna retire or get back to what he was with the Cubs? Is that ever gonna happen? Or
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to happen, at least to justify the contract that they signed him for, gave him a lot of money. And obviously didn't really fill out, at least to the Tigers' expectations. A guy who is still, even at, I would say, probably definitely the second half of his career, still reaching for balls way out of the zone, striking out, still going for, the big home run blasts, but not a situational player, not exactly the guy you want on a team where that division, I believe, will be once again a division that's decided by a couple games or so. Staying in the AL Central, though, Joey, the Twins finished the season 2 games over 500, like we said, but fourth place. So a team that was, perhaps in the market to make some moves, didn't make a whole lot of moves, though, at least on that roster top to bottom.
yeah, I mean, the only moves they made was Harrison Bader and Ty France. Um, Bolsters the lineup, I guess. I like Bader a lot. I feel like what he added to the Mets was valuable, and it'll be more valuable with the Twins because I feel like he'll take over Buxton's spot when Buxton misses like a guaranteed 30 games to 50 games per season. So, and then yeah, we'll just see how that rotation looks. Um, I'm not sure where they're gonna go with it. So, I mean, they do still have Pablo Lopez as their ace. But again, a team that I wouldn't say scares me, but I mean, they catch fire. And I like the way Correa's handling the team also. He's adding into that leadership role. You could see in the playoffs and everything. Um, which is kind of crazy because he went from the bad guy, the villain of the league, to now like, all right, like maybe I can respect him now since
Yeah.
he's maturing into that role. So
Yeah. Twins, I would say also just, putting the ball in that conversation. A team that did not finish good down the stretch, 2-8 in the last 10 to finish off last year. So perhaps a little, at least running out of gas towards the end of the season and what was a tight race all the way to the end. But speaking of the basement of baseball and the basement of divisions, Miami Marlins, a team that obviously was far and away one of the worst teams, if not, I guess the worst team in the NL, you could definitely make the case for. 62 wins last year, and not a whole lot of offseason moves to improve that team.
no, I mean their biggest signing was Cal Quantrill. It's a 1-year deal. I guarantee he gets traded throughout the season, mid-season. The only good signing for this team is Sandy Alcantara is back. But again, I guarantee he gets traded this year, which is just how the Marlins work, I guess. I don't see how that can sustain a team for a long time. Um, they're just feeding teams at this point. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
probably just trying to build up capital in hopes of something. I don't know what that is. But like we said, Marlins probably not going to be a player this year once again, especially given the offseason. Speaking of players, though, the Mets landed probably the biggest fish of the offseason. Soto, 15-year deal. And then they kept some of their star power as well out there in New York as they try to, go band for band with the Yankees.
Yeah, like you said, Juan Soto, a 15-year deal. We won't even get into all the numbers on that. That's too much money to get
Yeah.
into. Um, they did re-sign Pete Alonso, big re-signing there. A guy that's probably their anchor on the team, I would say. I guess when he was at the TGL, New York was playing some other team. Not to bring up TGL into this, but he was at one of the matches because it's right down there in Florida.
Yeah.
But he was saying he was with Jeff McNeil, and Jeff's like, we need to bring this guy back. He's a great locker room piece. Everyone likes him, and he hits bombs.
Yeah.
So um, more signings. Clay Holmes on a 3-year deal. Shawn Manaea re-signed on 3-year deal. AJ Minter on a 2-year deal. Re-signed Jesse Winker on a 1-year deal, and trade for the Rays for Jose Siri. So you can see again. This is a team like the Yankees that were right there, just ran into a wall, sort of, and you know, they're trying to bring it back all their pieces for probably one last ride, I would say. But yeah, that Soto deal is insane, dog.
Yeah, kind of an interesting division too. You look at the Mets last year, finished 89 and 73, a team that was good in the regular season. Another loaded division though, played really well in the postseason, and definitely aggressive. With all those moves that you just laid out. The Nationals, on the other hand, they were left on the outside looking in. 20 games under 500 last year. Nationals kind of been in a weird middle spot for a little bit now. Um, I guess just, maybe some of their offseason moves, Joey, along with, where they kind of stand in a tough division.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, I do like their offseason moves. I feel like this could be a sneaky team. We'll get into that later. But they do trade with the Rangers for Nathaniel Lowe, first baseman. They signed Michael Soroka on a 1-year deal, Josh Bell on a 1-year deal, and then Paul DeYoung and Amin Rosario both on a 1-year deal. So kind of going with the mix of veteran to young talent. Um, but again, we'll see how that division plays out. You still got the Phillies, Braves, and Mets now to worry about. So
Looking also in that division, the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, obviously, coming off a pretty good season themselves, finished with the same 89 and 73 record that the Mets did. They were in one of the wild card spots. Braves, a little more quiet of an offseason. A team that maybe kind of believes they still have some pieces to make a deep run. Hence why they weren't so active in this offseason.
yeah. Yeah, not very active, but the pieces that they got are pretty solid. Jerkson Profar on a 3-year deal and Brian De La Cruz on a 1-year deal. I mean, two utility guys. I think De La Cruz actually just plays outfield, but Profar, a utility guy. Both guys contact hitters, can hit for power also. Guys just plug into the lineup and they're gonna get on base. So I like the signings, just not the flashiest or like the biggest,
Yeah.
but they're gonna be nice. I like that paired with the whole lineup. We'll get into the whole roster and lineups later. Um, yeah, good signings for the Braves.
The winner of the NL East last year, the Phillies, 95 and 67 regular season. They made some moves. I know, Joey does love the Phillies himself, just because why not? And Joey, expect this team to be right back up there, no?
Definitely. I mean, with that talent in that lineup, it's kind of hard to say no. But their offseason, they did address pitching needs with Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins and Jordan Romano, reliever slash closer, and then outfielder Max Kepler on a 1-year deal. But yeah, I mean, they address the needs. They need pitching. They need to help Zach Wheeler. He's a guy that's all they can that's all that they can rely on when it comes playoff time. So, and then like I said, that lineup with Harper, Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos, and now you got Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh in the mix.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it should be a team that should be right there. realistically, I would say kind of up there with the Dodgers, but you know, we'll see how it plays out.
We'll breeze through this, but NL Central, we talk about it all the time. Very competitive division, always at least from the jump of the year. Cardinals, though, not one of the teams that was really a front runner per se last year. Didn't make an offseason move. Not exactly sure everything behind that, but I think it's really because everybody's just scared of the Chicago Cubs at this point.
I'll agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
In rounding out that division, the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that obviously boasting some really good young talent in the rotation. A team that started off the year not all so bad last year, and maybe perhaps one of the sneakier teams in that division. I wouldn't put it past them to make a run.
yeah. Um, we saw last year what they were about. Paul Skeens is what they're about.
You know,
Um, their offseason was um all right, I would say. Not the craziest. They re-signed McCutcheon on a 1 year deal. See, like that's not really gonna affect anybody. Might be his farewell tour.
yeah.
We'll see. Spencer Horwitz on a 3-team trade with the Blue Jays and Guardians. Tommy Pham, Andrew Heaney, and Adam Frazier. Um, takes a cake on their main signings. So um, we said pitching was what they're about. So they add a couple lineup pieces to hopefully back that the rotation up and the bullpen. So a team I would like to see in the playoffs. Definitely have the talent and get there. And we'll just see how that division plays out. Like you said, is very competitive at the moment.
Yeah, well, that rounds out the Grapefruit League. Obviously, spring training underway. I will say out in the Grapefruit League, Blue Jays and Nationals lead the Grapefruit League so far 3-0, both on the season. O's also up there along with the Tigers at 2-1. So everything in full swing down here in Arizona, but also down in Florida is it's about that time to get this season underway.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of season underway, let's get into our predictions, shall
Yeah.
we? What we're gonna do are players and teams to watch by division. Um, we tried to pick not the flashiest player or the most, you know, the logical team
Right.
like that would win that division. We're gonna pick like sneaky players and sneaky teams to look out for. We'll start off with the AL East, shall we?
Yeah.
Uh, my player personally is Jarren Duran from the Red Sox, center fielder. Um, All-Star Game MVP last year. Definitely just like hits for average. I mean, he's a five-tool player, and those kind of catch my attention more than other teams or than other players. So he got 160 games played last year, ended with a 285 average, 342 on base percentage, and an 834 OPS. So, I mean, again, a guy that's a five-tool player. And then for the team that would be sneakiest in the AL East, I was gonna go Yankees, but I said, what, I don't want to be like that. I want to be different. And so I'm sticking with the Red Sox,
Yeah.
and we're gonna ride this wagon out.
Yeah.
I really did like their signings for the offseason, as I said before, with the likes of Walker Bueller and who else did I say? Oh, Garrett Crochet. And then you still bring back Brian Bello, who's a young starter, gonna help that rotation. But then you look at the lineup. I mean, Bregman, Devers, Trevor Story if he gets healthy, Jarren Duran, Willie Abreu. Um, I mean, this is a sneaky team, I feel like, and a team that shouldn't be slept on lightly. You still got Liam Kendricks in the bullpen as it stands right now. Guys like Cutter Crawford had a stretch last year that was not expected at all. So yeah, that's my team and that's my player that in the AL East.
Yeah, I know you didn't really want to touch the Yankees. I'll take my player from the defending, I guess you could say, AL, not only AL East champs, but American League champs, the New York Yankees. I'm gonna take Fernando Cruz in addition to the pen out there in New York. coming by way of the Reds. 3-8 last year, 4.86 ERA. I think the biggest thing about Fernando Cruz, big strikeout guy, third most strikeouts from a reliever. I believe it was behind Mason Miller and Aroldis Chapman, if I'm not mistaken. You look at the Yankees, they're obviously going to be in the run for the World Series again, which means a deep playoff run. I think the bullpen, is something that can really elevate them to the next level. When you're going against teams against like the Dodgers, Mets, heavy hitters like that, you're going to have to improve on the margins. I think, the addition of Fernando Cruz, maybe a guy who didn't play fantastic at the Reds. I think he can be retooled and really be a big part of the Yankees bullpen and obviously poised them to make another deep push in the postseason. My team in the AL East to look out for. I know it's kind of, a little bit of a chalk, but I'm going to take the Orioles. We touched on it. They finished the season 20 games over 500. I wouldn't say they had my favorite offseason. You look at their notable losses, lost a lot of pitching. So I think definitely, pause for concern there. But at the same time, they still maintain a lot of a young core. And typically, what I like to say about young teams is they have, the gas tank to make a deep run in the season just because they're young guys. You don't have to worry about, like second half fatigue. And I think the Orioles are going to be right back there. Can they, compete with teams like the Yankees for the top spot in the division? Probably not. But I definitely think a team that's maybe getting a little overlooked just because of the offseason that they did have.
Yeah. Um, we'll see how it plays out in that division. I mean,
Yeah.
probably would you say that's the best division in baseball right now?
I think talent wise, it's definitely got the claim. The Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, all in your top three, and then really, I mean, the Rays and the Blue Jays are the basement of your division. I think that's enough for me to say that that's the best division. I would say talent wise.
Yeah. I mean, teams that can easily be 500 or above. I mean, we saw that like what last year, 2 years ago,
Yeah,
that every team was at least 500
I would
and
say definitely in the AL too. That'd be the best. I mean, if you want to talk about best division in baseball, maybe the NL West is in there, but I think in the American League, that division is definitely the hottest.
yeah, agreed. AL Central time now. You want to kick it off with who's your player and team to look out for?
Yeah, I'm doubling up here. I'm going with Riley Green and the Detroit Tigers. Riley Green, left fielder, .262 average last year, 24 home runs, 74 RBIs, and a 384 on base percentage. This is decision time for the Tigers and Riley Green. He's due for a contract extension. I always like to take players too that are playing a little bit with house money, a prove it year per se. I would expect to see big things out of him. The Detroit Tigers, like I said before, one of my favorite stories in the MLB season last year, 10 games over 500. The city of Detroit has been wanting a competitive baseball team for such a long time, and they finally get it. And I believe that they're a team that can win that division. The Guardians, Royals, and Tigers all made the playoffs out of that division, but I wouldn't say any one of those teams is really a heavyweight team. I think that, either one of those teams above them last year, the Guardians or Royals, could definitely, fall off a little bit, allowing the Tigers to maybe jump up and make a move for the top spot.
Yeah. I love how you put that out that division had three teams make the playoffs. Um, it's anybody's game.
Yeah,
My player I took was Travis Bazana. Bazana is how you say it. You guys might be saying who is that? We've never heard of him. That's because he was drafted first round, first pick last year in the June amateur draft from Oregon State. This is where you'll see the theme of mine for my players. It'll be second year players mostly, or like young, talented players. That's who I kind of hit on.
yeah,
Pause on that. But he did come from Oregon State. His Oregon State stats last year, he ended with a 407 average, a 568 on base percentage with a 1.479 OPS. Yeah,
unbelievable.
he's legit.
Yeah,
Second baseman. I mean, it's just exciting. I want the Cleveland Guardians to finally get someone that can you know, outside of pitching, we know how good their pitching is.
yeah,
We know how good their bullpen is. Um, when is someone gonna step up and take that Lindor spot? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I think he's it. And I'm excited. He's out here in spring training right now. He's taking a couple ABs. So it's exciting. He probably won't be called up like right away unless he's just like, that good, which he could be. But I expect him to be up maybe before All-Star game, a little after maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that I'm excited for them. I'm excited for that guy.
I think an interesting thing with him too is like if he does get called up, like in the amidst a competitive race for the division, he could definitely be the guy that they bring in midseason to push them over the top. And
Yeah.
I think the timing of that, like he was going to get some big opportunities whenever he gets called up, just given how close those teams I think will be in the AL Central.
Yeah. And then you look at this team, I mean, they got Kyle Manzardo, Brian Rocchio. They just brought back Carlos Santana, Stephen Kwan still there, Lane Thomas is still there. So a bunch of guys that can get on base. I'm not seeing any big power threats really, but I think he's the combination of power and contact, which is what they need.
Yep.
But on the other side, I don't see them as a really like, sleeper team, guy, a team you should look out for. I'm going with the Kansas City Royals. I think Patrick Mahomes, what he does for this team. I mean, my bad, my fault. I didn't mean to say that.
Chill, bro.
But
Chill.
yeah, I saw Kansas City, I went blind. But nah, realistically, this team is definitely the sneakiest of all teams. You see a lot of guys probably that aren't big names, but we saw last year they dominated the playoffs easily against a team that should have outmatched them, which was the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
And somehow they outmatched them with likes of Cole Reagans at the starting spot. You still got who else we got here? Carlos Estevez. They just brought in, like I said last week, Michael Lorenzen, Seth Lugo. And then their lineup still Salvador Perez holding that captain spot, which is always nice. Jonathan India, who was a rookie of the year a couple years ago, they bring in to run the middle infield. Vinny Pasquach, Bobby Witt obviously is the big name on there. Um, so team's gonna be solid, and I would look out for them. I would be scared of them, more than the Guardians probably, respectfully. All right, with that, we're gonna start off. We're gonna go back to the AL West, um, a division that another one that could be seen up for grabs, but got some shitter teams in there. Edward, you wanna carry over with your player and your team?
Yeah, so obviously a team that's going to be in the running for a World Series, the Oakland Athletics, or I'm sorry, the Sacramento Athletics, or I don't even know what do we call them at this point? I don't know if we refer to them as Athletics, Sacramento Athletics, but nonetheless, I'm taking Lawrence Butler, right fielder, a guy that has a lot of potential. You talk about the Athletics needing to be aggressive, especially if they are, moving forward with this move to Las Vegas, trying to like build up some excitement and some hype for that. They're going to need to be aggressive. I think Lawrence Butler can be a cornerstone of this team. Right fielder last year averaged 2.262, 317 on base percentage, an 807 OPS. So far in spring training, pretty good start for him as well. 2 runs, 4 hits, a home run, and a RBI, 6 at bats so far. Also, another interesting stat on him: 18 for 18 on stolen bases last year. So a very athletic guy. He got sent down to the minors for a little bit, came back with what they were saying was a tweaked swing and started to play better baseball. So a team that, or a player, I should say, on a team maybe that won't be so competitive, but a player that can maybe make them a little interesting to watch this year, other than the fact that they're playing in the great city of Sacramento, California. My team for the AL West, I'm going to go with the Seattle Mariners. Joey kind of talked me into this. Mariners, a team that was surprisingly not all that bad last year, finished second in the AL West, 85 and 77 record. Only 3.5 games back at the Astros last year, a team that always plays pretty competitive, and a team that finished really well, 8-2 in their last 10. Really played the whole last calendar month, not bad at all that much, kind of making a push in that division. But just given how good the AL Central and AL East was, none of those teams were afforded a wild card spot. But I think games to be won in that division, given the Athletics probably won't be all that competitive. We know the Angels aren't going to be competitive at all. Maybe we'll win 10 games this year. So definitely some space for them to rack up some wins in that division.
Yeah. For the record, I didn't talk Edward into picking the Seattle Mariners. I really could care less about the Seattle Mariners. I hear like every day that they're the best team in the league. Have yet to see that. But my player is going to be Wyatt Langford for the Rangers, another second year player, left fielder. You know, guy that hit for the cycle last year. Another five-tool player. Um, and then when you pair him up with this lineup, I mean, you look at Wyatt Langford hitting with Adolis Garcia. They just bring Jock Peterson in, Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon, Justin Foscue, Ezekiel Duran, Jake Berger they bring in, and Jonah Heim. Pretty stacked lineup, if you ask me. A guy that can hit at the one or two spot or hit in the back nine as the double leadoff. So last year he had an average of 262 with a 317 on base percentage, and an 807 OPS. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's the wrong stats. My fault. I was looking at Lawrence Butler, bro. You got me tied in
Yeah,
on the
I'm
A's.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Relax, bro. Wyatt Langford stats, he had 134 games played, with a 253 average. That sounds about right. A 325 on base percentage and a 740 OPS. So again, five-tool player, guy that can hit for power as we've seen, but a guy that I like at the top of the lineup if he gets the nerves down and sets in. I mean, if he's in at the top of the lineup, you saw the rest of that lineup.
Yeah.
It's flow right through. And then my team to look out in the AL West. It was a tough decision, but I'm gonna go with the Oakland slash Sacramento Athletics. Now, you might be asking yourself, is this guy high off his ass right now? I'm gonna say no, you are, because if you look at this team, I have belief in them, and I think a change of scenery is what's gonna bring it all together. You look at this team. I'm looking at the roster right now. Shane Langelier, top catcher in the league next year, guaranteed. Their infielders, you got Zach Geloff with Tyler Swordstrom, Luis Urias, Gio Urshela, and Jacob Wilson. Um, that just screams nobodies. But that's what the A's are. And you got to believe in them that they will win games with these nobodies or should be retired players.
Yeah.
Their outfielder is pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie. Esteury Ruiz 2 years ago was like the stolen base champ. He needs to be at the top of the lineup to get on base, steal some bags. Brett Rooker, an all-star. Dude hits bombs. He's gonna be at that three spot. Then you got Lawrence Butler at the two spot, like we just said, a guy that's coming up and coming, tweaked his swing. He looked like prime Barry Bonds to me, if I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest. You still got Seth Brown, JJ Bleday, Miguel Andujar. Um, so a team I believe in, I really do believe in them because if they get to that ninth inning up one run, they're not getting it. They're not blowing it because you know why? They got Mason Miller in that bullpen. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So this is the team that I think could be sneaky in the whole league, not just this division. And then teams are gonna be like, dude, we gotta travel to Sacramento. Dude, they're not gonna want to be in Sacramento.
Right.
You know what
Playing
I
in a
mean?
minor league
The
stadium.
own team doesn't want to be in
Yeah.
Sacramento. What do you think these other teams are gonna feel like?
Right.
Um, yeah, that's my case. Hop on
You
the
know,
A's wagon right now.
I don't think I've really mentioned this on the PNN podcast through like the first two seasons is I actually mess with the A's heavy. Like I got family out in the Bay. The A's are
Okay.
always cool to me.
No,
Uh,
like who is this kid, bro?
actually, matter
He's
of
trying to
fact,
hop on the wagon now.
I got family in Sacramento. So now I'm really a homer for the Oakland Athletics. But yeah, no, I like your case. Honestly, Joey, I think just like with them moving eventually, like potentially to Las Vegas, I'll believe it when I see it. Um, in like this weird like middle stage that they're in and just Sacramento just kind of feels like it's just house money. It's like whatever goes, if we're good, cool. If we're not, there's no pressure. So I feel like that's when teams are dangerous. And I think a big confidence here potentially for the A's. But I guess I'll kick off the NL East. My player is I'm gonna once again another double up here. I'm gonna go with Austin Riley from the Atlanta Braves, third baseman. Austin Riley, I don't know if you can really say a breakout player. Three straight top 10 NL MVP finishes. Last year dealt with some injuries. Had an injury. I was trying to figure out exactly what it was. It never put him on the IL, but he did miss a month and a half. So kind of one of those injuries that I think was probably a nagging one that you were trying to get back, weren't sure. and just end up missing some extended period of time. But another good, I think, opportunity for him to have a rebound year. Averaged 256 last year in 110 games played, a 320 on base percentage with a 783 OPS, playing on an Atlanta Braves team. Once again, I think will be competitive in the NL East. 6 games back at the Phillies, so the Phillies did kind of run away with that division. I think the Phillies will probably be the team to beat once again. But also, if the Braves have guys like Austin Riley return to, a top 10 NL MVP finish form, can be a player in that division. And if, really also another team too, if they get the wild card spot, I think they're a live dog in the playoffs. So I'm going to take Austin Riley. Like I said, I don't know if we can call it a breakout player, but a rebound year, I would say for him.
Yeah, I like that pick. My pick for the NL East, my player, I actually got two here on the same team. I'm going with Dylan Cruz and James Wood, both second year players. Like I said, this is where I'm at with these teams. I saw a common theme last year of like these rookies being brought up. Some of them kind of iffy,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping for a big year with Dylan Cruz. I mean, last year he only played a couple games towards the end of the season. He had a 218 average with a 288 on base and a 641 OPS. So again, I feel like he's going to take a major step in the right direction this year. Whether that is bringing him down to AAA at the start of the season or starting him in the majors, we'll see. But James Wood, on the other hand, got called up earlier. Um, he had a 264 average, 354 on base, and a 781 OPS. Again, what's the common theme with these guys? They're five-tool players. They got speed, they got defense, they can hit for power and contact. Um, and that leads me to my team that's going to be sneaky. It's the Nationals. Why? Let me go on a rant again with these suck ass teams, but don't look at the face value. You gotta look deeper into the teams. We look at this lineup, like I said, Dylan Cruz hits and James Wood obviously hit. Those two guys are gonna be the centerpieces of that lineup. You bring in Ahmed Rosario, who's utility guy, speed. He'll add some value. Stone Garrett's still there in right field. Jacob Young was a guy that was under the radar last year. Stolen base machine, combating the leadoff spot. And then you bring in Nathaniel Lowe for power, Josh Bell for power, Paul Young for that veteran presence. I'm not sure what's going on with CJ Abrams. I believe he was caught in the betting scandal. Not sure what's going on there. But again, another young, talented infielder. Trey Lipscomb, another talented third baseman. Um, and then we'll get into this rotation. They still got Mackenzie Gore. Um, yeah, that's about it. Their pitching is pretty terrible. But anyways, looking at face value, I think this could be a sneaky team. That's it. That's the theme I'm going with there. Sneaky teams that no one's really looking at, you know? And I feel like they could get overlooked by the Braves and the Phillies, obviously. So
Also depends what you define success as too, because I like for me, my expectations, like if the Nationals perform well but are still not in the top three picture, I'm not going to call that a failure of a season just because they're playing against the Phillies, Braves, and Mets, which all three teams are, capable of making deep playoff runs. So uh, solid pick there. Going to NL Central, my favorite division in baseball, my favorite team. I'm gonna go with Pete Crow Armstrong for the Chicago Cubs. Guy that had a ton of, heat coming up through, I guess the minors. Was brought up last year for the Cubs. Didn't start off fantastic. Ended up finishing the season with a 2.37 batting average and a 670 on or OPS, excuse me. But the interesting thing here for PCA was his work post like midsummer from July 27th onward. He hit 289, 337 on base percentage, and a 806 OPS. So a guy that finished the season well, and something that I would credit maybe a slow start to the season, just getting adjusted to the major leagues and just finding his rhythm, but a guy that has a lot of upside for the Chicago Cubs, a lot of speed, very athletic guy in the outfield, can cover quite a bit of ground. And I think is really a perfect center fielder that you can build around for the extended future if you're the Cubs. And Also, I'm taking the Cubs as my team. Tying in with PCA, the Cubs, really haven't been in the market, or at least haven't shown a ton of interest in breaking out the checkbook for a lot of these guys that have been on the open market, maybe that they should be in the market for, given that they play in the city of Chicago and are one of the most historic franchises in baseball. But I think they do have some pieces. The addition of Kyle Tucker, excuse me, makes things interesting. And I think really. The Cubs are in a division this year that's anyone's game. The Brewers lost some pieces. The Cardinals, I don't really know if they're a credible and a formidable threat, especially given the fact that they didn't make any moves in the offseason. So I think any one of those teams can make a run at it, but I have to take my hometown Cubs because if I didn't take them, I'd have a lot of angry people back at home. So yeah,
Nice. I like how you branched yourself out in that division.
yeah, right,
I like that a lot.
right.
Um, my pick is going to be Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. Now, obviously, we all heard about Paul Skeens, Rookie of the Year, could have potentially won Cy Young, but then you bring in Jared Jones, who was also with him last year, both second-year starters. Um, two guys that throw over 100. Um, and the reason I picked both of them is because I want to know if Paul Skeens can keep this up and how long can he keep this up for. And I want to know how Jared Jones would back him because that's their 1-2 right there as it looks on their roster. I mean, they still have Bailey Falter. They bring in Andrew Heaney, and that's pretty much it. Mitch Keller. But when you look at the rotation, it's those two guys as the anchors. So Skeens, obviously last year. 200 or 23 games started, 11 wins, 1.96 ERA with 170 strikeouts. Just unreal numbers for a rookie. And then Jared Jones had 22 games started with 6 wins, a 4.14 ERA with 132 strikeouts. Um, Basically, I just want to see how that duo runs it. Um, Hopefully we see them stay in Pittsburgh again. Like once Paul Skeens got going last year, everyone was saying, dude, can't wait for him to be a future Yankee,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Um, but we'll see how it plays out. I think once they hit the playoffs, they'll realize, all right, we got our team, we got everyone we need, we got our rotation set in. Let's build around these two guys and let's go take out the big teams. You know what I mean? So, in that division though, I'm gonna take the Cincinnati Reds as my sleeper team. I would go with the Cubs, but we have a Cubs Glazer already
Oh,
on the
it's just because you didn't
sleeper.
want to go with the chalks, and I respect that.
Yeah. When you look at the Reds, obviously their main piece is Ellie De La Cruz. I feel like that's set in stone. Um, they're in the rotation. I would say it would probably be Hunter Green as their main guy, which isn't bringing a lot to the table. You had Graham Ashcraft kind of have a stretch there last season. Alexis Diaz as a valuable relief pitcher slash closer. But I like the additions with Taylor Rogers and Brady Singer. That those are going to be two assets that help them in the long run. Then their lineup, obviously, we just said Ellie De La Cruz, their guy. That's another five-tool guy. They bring in Gavin Lux to help him at second base. Jamer Candelario, um, and then Matt McClain, a guy that went under the radar last year, as I believe it was his rookie year. Um, Another five-tool player, batting for average mostly. Um, that guy that's going to be slept on a lot. I think he played third most of the time because Ellie was that short. And then the outfield, you have Fairchild with TJ Frettel, a guy that hits for average. Also, Austin Hayes and Spencer Steer. Um, so I like the pieces that they have. Again, this is a very inconsistent team, though.
Yeah.
So if they can find some consistency with the pitching, if they bring up Rhett Lauder maybe mid-season, a rookie last year, um, this team has the pieces set in stone. Just how consistent can they be? You see Ellie kind of being inconsistent, kind of running them out of innings sometimes. But if he can settle into that captain role, this team's gonna go far.
Speaking of very competitive divisions, we're going to round it out with perhaps one of the most competitive divisions, definitely, I would say, in the NL West. Quite a crowded field. I guess my sleeper player, once again, kind of going along with Austin Riley, I would say more of like a rebound year. I'm going to take Jung-Ho Lee for the Giants, center fielder, coming off an injury, through 145 uh, at bats last year before the injury. Very solid, 262 average, a 310 on base percentage, and a .641 OPS. Also started spring training hot, a run on 2 hits and a home run. Just 5 times he's been up to the plate so far. Fills that center field slot, and I'm hearing potentially also the leadoff man there in San Francisco. San Francisco, a team I think this is their improvement year, at least I think upon their finish of last year, 2 games under. I think that they're in good position. They've surrounded I would say a pretty decent offseason as well. But I think they're definitely a team that can probably be up to the level, I would say, of the Padres. Just depends. But at the same time, for my team in that division, I'm gonna take the D-backs. D-backs, following that NL title, kind of recessed a little bit last year, 89 and 73, which is honestly still a stellar year for the D-backs, especially when you have to play the Dodgers and Padres. But they keep Zach Gallen, Cy Young caliber pitcher. Got some help on the first base side as well. I think could be another team that can make. I wouldn't really say that was a Cinderella run that one year, but I think if they do get in the playoffs, unlike last year, if they can get back to that wild card spot, can make a deep run. I think the rotation, for me at least, good starting pitching can carry you pretty far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think if you mentioned Corbin Burns, the addition with Zach Allen, yeah, that's another dynamic dude. That's what I was mentioning with Jared Jones and Paul Skeens. That's how, that potentially can pan out for them. My pick is going to be Jackson Merrill for the Padres. I kind of went outfield heavy, so I apologize to all the infielders and pitching. But I mean, how can you not talk about Jackson Merrill's first year? He batted 292 with a 326 on base and an 826 OPS. Um, I think he was in the run for Rookie of the Year, but Paul Skeens deserved it. Um, but again, another guy I want to see, can he keep this up? And if he does keep this up, this team is going to be insanely dangerous, which is why they're also my team for the NL West. I mean, look at this lineup. You got Luis Arias, Alexander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis. I mean, just absolute cornerstones around the lineup, and then their rotation and bullpen. I mean, they still got Jason Adam in the bullpen, who they got last year from the Tampa Bay Rays. Yu Darvish, Michael King, who was their main guy in the playoffs. Matt Waldron, the knuckleball thrower, Joe Musgrove, the hometown kid. Um, so I like this team a lot. Again, a team that's been kind of weird the past few years with the managerial change and not them spending a lot of time in the off season. Well, I mean, it's going to be tough in that division. We know who's the king of that division, and
Yeah.
you know, hopefully they can get it going. And yeah, so that's going to be my team. The Padres, look out for them.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
all we got for baseball,
yeah,
I
I was
believe.
gonna say happy spring training. What are we like about a month now until opening day? So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited for that. I got to get out to a spring training game. That's my goal for the next 3 weeks. So
Yeah. Yeah, go hit up Sloan.
yeah, got to.
Yeah.
Real fast though, I don't know if if you remember, but there's also basketball happening right now. So
No, I actually don't. I
shout out to
I
the
forgot
NBA.
about that.
We'll quickly hop on the hoops bus. We're getting past the All-Star game. Don't even want to remember that or even talk about it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Anymore. But the reason I bring that up is because the NBA fans like myself getting treated to actually a really good schedule coming out of the All-Star break, starting tonight, which if this is posted tomorrow, it's going to be old news. But Luka Doncic making his first appearance against his old team in the Dallas Mavericks. This time it's taking place over in LA at the Staples Center or Crypto.com Arena, whatever your cup of tea is. But over under, I think for Luka's stat line tonight, I want to say it was like 30 and a half. Lakers are 7.5 point favorites. What do you think, Joe? I mean, I know, you don't watch the LA Lakers like I do, but you know Luka Doncic, you know his
Yeah.
mentality going against an old team. What do you think the final point total is for him tonight? Because I'm hearing people put up crazy numbers like 50, 60 burgers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty insane. Listen, here's all I gotta say, and I'm gonna quote the great Shannon Sharp. He said OKC, KFC, UFC,
Yeah.
Lakers in five. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. But Luca, yeah. I don't know about the point total for tonight. Definitely expect him to go off. I feel like LeBron knows it. Everyone knows on that team, like we gotta get him going, and this is his night. Not ours, this is his.
Yeah, and other than the fact that I'm a big Lakers fan, I feel like it's worth talking about just because the Lakers are starting to like emerge as serious contenders, I think, in the Western Conference. They just came off a win beating the Nuggets 123 to 100. They lost their last 13 of 14 to the Nuggets. Luka put up 32 in that game. I would say more so looked like his regular self, just pulling up from beyond the arc, hitting those, step back shots and kind of just staring people down. And I think if he can get that type of play going coming off his injury, I think the Lakers are going to be in very good position. Obviously, we know that they are a little bit deficient inside and in the interior. Jackson Hayes really their lone center right now. Alex Sen was added, but doesn't really he hasn't provided a whole ton of insurance for them. But I think the Lakers are a legit team if Luka Doncic can play like that. In other news, though, over in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers staying hot, winning streak now reaches 7 games, league best, 47 and 10 on the year. Um, they were missing Darius Garland for a little while. They continued to play really well. The Cavaliers, I think, a team that maybe getting a little more respect than they have been, but at least for my money, I think the team still to beat would be the Celtics. Celtics are 6 games back though, so I really think. Um, the Eastern Conference one seed is the Cavs to win at this point. But we'll see. The Celtics are on a win streak of their own. But talking about some of those big games, marquee matchups that we have coming this week, Bucks and Rockets. Rockets, a very formidable team in the Western Conference right now, tied with the Lakers. 35 and 22 on the year. They're going to take on the Bucks. Bucks also in the top five of the Eastern Conference. Celtics and Pistons. The Pistons, a team that I was surprised to see how good they've been played all year. Sixth place in the Eastern Conference, 6 games over 500 on a 7 game win streak. The Detroit Pistons, I mean, look out. Okay.
Yeah, I saw a stat that said the 7 games is like the longest streak in a decade.
Yeah. Obviously, we are talking about them last year. We were having the same conversation, but it was, the losing streak, how historic that was going to be. So the Pistons, the team that have turned things around, but definitely kind of a temperature check as they take on the Celtics. Other two big matchups, both involving the Nuggets and Bucks, and Nuggets and Celtics. I think the Nuggets and Celtics, the game beyond the Lakers games this week that I'll probably be most excited for. That one taking place on Sunday. So NBA starting to get rolling again. Like I said, a lot still to sort out. I think particularly in the Western Conference, the Thunder still hanging on to the one spot, but from there on down, it's anyone's game. Nuggets, Grizzlies, Lakers, Rockets, Clips, even the T-Wolves, all playing good basketball. So uh, definitely a lot still to play for in the second half of the season. And let's be honest, LeBron James winning his fifth ring would be incredible.
Yeah, I like to bring up a point. I think last night's game it was the OKC versus Minnesota,
Yeah.
and I think OKC is 0 and 2 against Minnesota. Anthony Edwards seems to have SGA's number as he made a game sealing block last night. So just like to point that out for all the fans out there. But yeah, like you said, what do you think about the Bucks? I'm a Dame fan, I'm an Ant fan. So two teams that are kind of struggling, but I don't know. We'll see how it is. Again with the T-Wolves, it seems like I don't know. It's just very inconsistent, obviously. So
Yeah, and listen, it depends. Like the whole Eastern Conference is playing well right now. The Bucks are on a 4 game win streak of their own. And they've just been a little streaky. Like they got blown out by the Thunder back early February, so you don't really take a whole lot from that. But they've beaten some good teams. They beat the Timberwolves a couple weeks back. They took care of business against some of the more less competitive teams like the Wizards and Hornets. But I think it just depends. Health is really wealth, I think, in that conference. But once again, like I'm still think the team that beats the Celtics. I know that Cleveland Cavaliers are on a long win streak, but until otherwise proven, I think the defending champs are definitely the team to beat in the Eastern Conference and really probably in all of the NBA. So that's kind of my measuring stick right now. But I wouldn't mind seeing Dame get into an Eastern Conference Finals. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. We should bring up next week some bets.
Yeah,
Talk about some betting lines that we got for the week
yeah,
coming up. So
yeah.
we'll get into that next week.
Speaking of that,
Um,
so Joey, TGL, let's round things out because we got some clarity of the TGL playoff picture.
yeah. Yeah, definitely exciting. I mean, last night was a big night for TGL as it set in some playoff teams as the Bay, LA, and Atlanta um, all clinched, which is kind of the teams I was talking about. I think I said the Bay. I think I said all three of those teams were kind of wagons. Um, but the teams I like the most out of them would probably be Atlanta and Bay. I like LA a lot also, but I just think ATL is a great team that can come back. Their hammer usage, have you seen that stat? It's like that's how they win games. The Bay just dominates from start to finish, and LA is kind of that sneaky team. Um, Boston played last night, and they would be eliminated with a Jupiter win tonight, which is what all the fans are praying for, is to see Tiger Woods in that playoff spot. Um, so we'll see how it comes out. Jupiter does play the Bay, which is kind of fitting, Jupiter team that's right there has to play the best team tonight, but no Ludwig for the Bay tonight as he will be sitting out. Um, so I mean, we'll see how it goes. Any thoughts on the TGL and this playoff picture?
I'm excited. I'm excited. I've really liked how all of this has kind of turned out. I mentioned to Joey earlier this week, though. I think moving forward in the TGL, I need to see some of like the elements of the NBA trade deadline and players demanding trades and like beef and feuds going on. I think that would really bring the TGL to the next level. But haven't seen a TGL playoff yet. I think it's going to do well. I think it'll do numbers. You also mentioned it tonight, Joey. Big matchup between Jupiter and the Bay. Perhaps maybe Jupiter probably has a little more to play for at this point than the Bay does. But Minwoo Lee, Lowry, and Wyndham Clark will be in, and then for Jupiter it'll be Tom Kim, Kevin Kisner, and Max Homa. So, how do you feel about that lineup, given that your season is on the line?
Some people would be like, "Oh, Tiger Woods isn't playing. Man, we have no shot."
Yeah,
I would disagree, bro. I mean, last week it was a tough week for Tiger with his mom passing and everything. Um, he wasn't at his A game. I think he takes this week off. Um, lets the boys play. No strings attached. No pressure. Like, oh, Tiger's watching me. I gotta be on my A game. No pressure like that at all. Hopefully, he's in the stands cheering them on. But I like this lineup. Tom Kim brings the energy, and we're gonna need that tonight against the Bay. I mean, Wyndham Clark is absolutely insane. And then you got who's the big guy on the Bay?
Lowry.
Yeah, Lowry. He's the Scotty Scheffler of of indoor
Well,
golf.
he says that he wants to be, yes. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. But
yeah. It's
yeah,
gonna be I think it's gonna be a great matchup because there's no Ludwig, which I mean, if Ludwig was in, we'd lose.
I was gonna about to say the same thing. Like I think tonight is actually a competitive matchup between these two teams. Wyndham Clark, like you mentioned, been playing good. Lowry, we know all that. Max Homa, though, I feel like has been kind of a sleeper player, and then like the energy Tom Kim brings, I think, can set up for a good one. I want to see like a late night because remember this is like a late start, not 9 o'clock Eastern time, so a
Yeah.
late night like OT, type of matchup between these two teams with Jupiter with everything to play for, and then could really just afford a loss and be just fine. But that's what I'm hoping to see tonight. But only time will tell. And of course, if this episode goes out tomorrow, it'll be old news, so you guys will know how it shakes
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Do you think if Jupiter wins tonight, do they make the playoffs? Do they kick New York out?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how that all works out. I assume, I don't know how many weeks are left in the regular season. I assume definitely at
One
least next
more.
week, right? One more.
Yeah, next week.
Uh,
I'll bring up the schedule right
I
now next
guarantee you
week.
that's going to set us up for a scenario where Jupiter can win. I don't know if it will be contingent on a win next week. They might have to win out to make the playoffs, but
Yeah.
honestly, if they are in a position next week where they have to win to make it, I think it'd be hard to bet against Jupiter, probably given the fact that they'll run out Tiger Woods.
Yeah. So next week, Monday, March 3rd is a doubleheader, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We got the Bay against LA. I mean, can we talk about pure cinema right there? And
Heavyweight
then
undisputed right there.
and then after that they got New York against Boston. Again, if we win and we get enough points and holes one, New York could be at that 5 spot and we could be at that 4 spot.
Mhm.
So New York would have to beat Boston. We'd be a huge Boston golf fan if we win tonight. And then we would play Atlanta Drive on Tuesday. Um, and then yeah, we would run out the king and hopefully have a LeBron takeover. But dude, this is really exciting. I'm not gonna lie. This is what the people pay to see.
I was going to say also one thing to consider too, if you do make OT, so if Jupiter does make OT, there's still points to get, even if you go to OT and lose, or if you push it to OT, you can still get a point. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, Jupiter has to stay competitive tonight. Whether that's winning it or at least pushing it to OT, I think will be important because every point matters at this point in the season. And just for the storyline, I think you want to see Jupiter win tonight because the Bay can afford to lose. They'll be fine. They're a playoff team already. But if Jupiter wins, I think Tiger Woods playing next week for a chance to go to the playoffs will do TGL numbers in terms of viewership and just like the overall like intrigue of the league. I think will be top tier then. So
Yeah. Before we kick it out, I just want to bring up the standings as it stands right now. LA Golf Club, your team, is in first with 7 points, and 23 holes won. So when it's a tie, they go to holes won. You guys are substantially ahead. The Bay and Atlanta are tied with 6 points each. The Bay above them with 18 holes won, Atlanta with 15 holes won. Oh wait, the Bay with 18 and 15, yeah. New York sits at the fourth spot with 3 points, and Jupiter is at 2 points. So again, we need a win here bad. Do you know how else we get points by without winning? As you said, pushing the OT also.
into OT, and you look at LA, they're in the lead with 7 points versus the six. That one extra point came from an OT loss that they had. So getting into OT will still help you out in the standings. Now, I'm sure there are a billion and one different scenarios that can happen in terms of the points race, but I'm not exactly sure where all the tiebreakers stand. But like I said, I think the more competitive tonight's matchup, it's better for Jupiter unless it's a complete run over by them. But I don't really foresee that being pitted against the Bay. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that definitely very interesting and like a really good filler, like I said earlier, this time of year on the sports calendar, with football kind of exiting stage left, you have the TGL coming right in at the right moment early in the week too. Like Mondays and Tuesdays, I think is perfect because no one really cares about regular season college basketball anyway. So
True that. True that. Yeah. That's all we got today. Thanks y'all for tuning in. Next week, what do we got coming up? Just more TGO, more basketball. Might get into a little bit of football.
yeah,
Um, we haven't touched that segment in 2 weeks now, but yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. Keep following the Instagram, turn on post notifications on the YouTube and IG, and yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one next week.